Hey everyone, it's Gretchen here, Catnpaws. Welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you mainly how I did the journal cover and then how I put everything together and came up with this beautiful final result. So stay tuned. This is going to be a traveler's notebook style journal, Tim Holtz inspired. So I'm going to use a file folder as my base, and I have a little template here already, and I'm working with this crease. So start with the manila folder, and I cut it 8.5 inches long by 5.5 inches wide, and again it's 8.5 inches long by 5.5 wide, and there's a reason why I do that. And save your little pieces here. You can use these as tags or pockets or decorate them, whatever you want to do with them. And then what I do is score on my manila folder 1 inch on each side. So if you can get it to stay together, that's great. Sometimes it wants to fight me. So I've scored 1 inch in on both sides, and the reason I do this because when I fold it in, then I'll have a really more durable edging, and you know, the edges seem to kind of go first to me in a journal. When you're working with it, you're adding things, you're writing it, you're opening it, all those good things. So here's the other tip I'm going to give on this. If you're going to just glue it, make it a glue, then just put glue down the whole strip and glue it shut. If you are going to sew it, then apply your glue only to the outer edges, because when you sew, that stitch will run right about there, and that way your needle doesn't get stuck in any glue. And especially if you use score tape or two-sided tape, red line tape, whatever tape you use, that will stick to your needle like, oh my gosh, it's not very nice, like a wet lollipop sticking to your clothes. Okay, I am actually looking for my tape because that is what I want to use. Because in the end this is going to be covered with fabric or paper with additional glue with the stitches. I mean, it just goes on. So yeah, I want to do on the outside only. Of course, you know, a junk journal is what you make of it. You can't go wrong. So just make it to the style you like. And it has taken me a long time to figure out what my style is, and I still don't know if I figured it out, because I'll watch a video and I'll be like, I want to do that. Oh, I can do that. And then and then my mind gets all confused. There I have my tape down. So now at this point my journal becomes again 8.5 inches long, and it has now became 4.5 inches wide. Totally optional step, but I think you'll thank yourself in the end for taking the extra step to do that. And it's not exactly a standard size traveler's notebook, but it's pretty darn close, and I like it because it's just you think about it, when you 8.5 is like your typical size of paper, 8.5 by 11 copier paper. And this bump right here, in case you're wondering, I ironed on my desk one day and it's never been the same. Okay, next up I'm going to apply my cover, and again I'm going to work with this crease because it's so nice, and you'll see why. And it doesn't matter really which way you go because that will be all covered. I am working out of this pack of fabric I picked up at Tuesday morning, and it's very, to me, Tim Holtz style. I don't think it is the brand. I mean, I know Joanne sells the Tim Holtz fabric, but it just reminds me of it. So, and I have the paper. And I bought all that paper back once upon a time. If your fabric is wrinkled, I recommend you do iron it out, because it's worth it. And I hate to iron. I do. Nothing with laundry pains me more than breaking out an iron. This is a little tip I learned from Alia De Pina, and I will link her video below, or her channel name. And I really thought, wow, that works. She's got her glue stick. Instead of wasting her good glue, gluing down. Okay, and this again applies only if you're going to sew. So let's assume from this point forward, we're going to sew on this journal. If you're going to glue, then you're going to have to use more glue than I'm going to use, because this is really only a temporary hold for the glue. I'm breaking out a big piece of scrap paper so I don't have to clean up my mat when I'm done. You're just going to take your glue stick. Here's the fun part. All over. And what's nice about a glue stick, it does dry decent. So you get the smoothness and you can sew on it, and I've never had a problem using the glue stick and then putting a stitch under it or over it after the glue dries. See, I had to have the cover done, and then I let my cover sit for a few hours before I continue on to the stitching part. And I'm one that usually starts with the cover and then add the signatures. I don't know why. I think because I want to see get that instant gratification of seeing what the cover is going to look like. And then you're just going to apply your fabric. You can apply it how you want. You can flip it over. Here is where my next tip comes in. I want to make sure I have ample amount of glue on the edge, because again, it's a temporary fix and I'm still much a beginner sewer. If I don't get my stitching right, then I'm stuck with it and I'm not a great sewer. So I want those edge to really stick down, because I did have a journal one time where it floated back up because of my stitch was so far in. So my actually like the corner started floating back up, and then you're like, you either have to kind of take it all back down. It's a lot of work. So I got my sides very secure, and that will dry in a few hours and I'll be able to put a stitch on it. Now the next thing I also learned from Alia, breaking out my 3-in-1, aka fabric tack. I don't know if art glitter glue would work on this. I think I like the extra of the fabric. Of course, you know this glue, if you have fingernail polish, will eat it right off because your fingers are going to get messy. So this is how she does hers. She, instead of mitering her corners, she glues them and folds them in. Whoa, that wasn't supposed to happen. So you can see that I'm going to apply some ample amount of glue, and I'm going the whole way down, and over here in the corner I'm kind of catching it on a triangle. because I'm going to fold that fabric flap in, and I'll show you real quick. My glue's a little bit stringy, so all you do is just fold it in. You got really enough time to work with this that you can add a little bit more glue than right there where it's going to hit here. So you can see there I'm just, hopefully, yeah, you can see that I'm just adding a line. So when I flip it over, it secures itself down. Now I use book corners, so that is where it comes in handy to use book corners, because it will cover up a lot of any flaws you have. But you don't have to, you can really make it work without it. And you'll see that when I'm done gluing here. And then fold that in. So I prefer to do a paper inside the journal cover. You can do more fabric if you're working with a book cover. You could probably figure something out. I have yet to do a little golden book junk journal in my wish list of things to do. Alright, so when I fold it over like that, that's what your corners will look like. See how nice that is? So I'm working out of this Tim Holtz paper stash pad, and I'm choosing my paper for my inside cover, and I have chosen this. That way the flowers, when you see it, will be the first thing you look at. And you want to keep in mind, if you're going to sew it, you may not have to do this extra step, but I like the double security of glue and a stitch, and you'll see why too with the glue. But I'm going to just trim off a little bit of the edges, so when the paper's sitting on it, it covers up a lot of your flaws, so you have the fabric border around. And so I'm going to cut this down 8 1/4 inches long by 8 3/4 inches wide. So I have my paper cut. I'm going to go ahead and apply some glue on the back so I can adhere it to the inside of my cover. I'm working again with the 3-in-1 or the fabric tack, because it kind of loosens the fibers of the paper up and it makes it folding a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and glue this down. And I take care not to get too close to the corners, that way I don't have seepage, because I'll use my brayer to help secure this to the inside. We've got our glue on. Make sure everything's upright and which way you want to go with the cover. And there we go, it's glued down. I'm going to fold it now, because again that glue seems to separate the fibers just a little bit, and that crease comes in handy right now. So I did not get any breakage. And for the cover, we got a good start. I'm going to put it aside and let it dry. and then come back and add some stitching to it. So once the glue dried on this journal, I did go ahead and put a stitch on it. I distressed it a little bit with my vintage photo, and I also added this pocket. I had decoupage an envelope that I had gotten at Michael's once upon a time, and I'm going to insert it in the front pocket of the journal itself. So that's what it looks like, and then it will just slip in here. I also worked on my signature. So signatures are pretty personal, I think. Depends on if you like to work with graph paper. I don't know why I said that. I guess because I saw that with scrapbook paper or thinner. I got this out of one of those pads that has like 180 sheets in it, and I did tea dye. It didn't take it very well, but there was a little bit of color on it. I have some tea dyed paper, some tea dyed out of a flower book, some lined children's paper, again with the scrapbook, some more tea dyed. This was a piece that kind of got stuck in the middle, so only the edges got a little stain on it, and then it's pretty much white, but it has that crinkly because it got wet. This is out of a vintage book, a bag. I cut off the ends, more tea dyed pages, and then in my middle is a piece of scrap paper out of that Tim Holtz pad. At this point now, I'm going to go ahead and stitch it into my journal. And you can see that because it's 8.5, it has to fit in there pretty nice and snug at the top and at the bottom. And I'm just lining everything up, making sure my pages are right side up, because I've sewn them in upside down. I'm sure many of you have done the same. And just like look at the placement and see if I like the way it's going to come out. So here's some of the tools I use when I'm stitching a journal. I like to use waxed thread, and I just go the 3 times the journal length. I also like to use bulldog clips to hold it in place when I make the holes, and this is a brad setter, but you can use an awl if you have one, or something pointy. And then I also prefer to work with a template, and this is a template I've used over and over again, and it's going to give me 4 holes. So I'm finishing up my last hole here, and you can see where they kind of punched out the end. Sometimes I'll go back through and just make them a little bit larger. Another tip, I use this, it came with a piece of furniture we got, so it takes my holes with no problem. Some people use a book and cradle it and do it that way. So now I'm going to go ahead and stitch. And I don't know about you, but I start sweating when I'm doing holes because I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up, because you only really get one chance. And you don't want it to be all crooked. So I'm putting my needle through. And I don't have the best strength in my wrists, so I do use the aid of a pair of pliers to help me pull the needle back out. So what I do is I grasp the cover as I'm kind of rocking it through. And then when I do get to the end, I leave a tail, and I'll put a piece of washi tape there just to hold that so I don't rip it, or should I say kind of pull it back out of the cover. And there's that. It's bound, ready to decorate. So I've added some embellishments. I'm calling it good. I like the way it turned out. I think it's very pretty. A little bit busy. However, I like all the little dangles, and so let's go ahead and jump into it. First off, there is an elastic closure on it. And then I added this removable button, and I believe this is Recollections, but very Tim Holtz inspired. And then here's the decoupaged envelope. There are a few goodies in there. I didn't want to fatten it up too much because I wouldn't be able to get it back in. And I got my book corners on. There's some journaling cards attached. A ruffle, and then this comes out and can be used as a bookmark. Tucks right in there. So it is mostly blank, and I wanted it to be left blank for the recipient to enjoy really having fun making pockets or embellishing, adding their own touch. Got spots for photos and journaling, a little fabric tag there. Again, some journaling spots and cards, and a Tim Holtz mini paper clip. This came out of a pack of Tim Holtz tickets out of his new line, and then this is out of his journaling cards. Clipped in there, and on the other side I used some of my scrap pieces to make journaling cards with. Good way to use those up. This is a fabric bundle. I picked this up at Tuesday morning. However, you can see it's very Tim Holtz inspired, and I just added some twine, made a pocket, and tucked it in there, so you can use that to wrap your book if you wanted, or make additional tags or tabs, whatever you want to do with it. And then there's the back. So I did grungy this up just a bit. There'll be another flip through of this because this is going to be a giveaway, so be on the lookout for the next video, which will have the giveaway what's the word I'm looking for? Rules. We'll have the rules on there. All right, take care.